Well, thank you so much for man-telling me that.
I believe the word you're fumbling for is mansplaining.
If you've experienced mansplaining, join the club.
There's also so many small things that women have to put up with every day that we don't even realize. They're called microaggressions.
Is that true?
The portmanteau of man plus explaining was coined in 2008, but the phenomenon has been around a lot longer in both life and pop culture.
Pheromones, Dr. Scully. Heavy in the air. Nature's natural attractants, driving the insect world to go forth and pollinate.
I'm aware how pheromones work.
And it's striking that in many on-screen portrayals, mansplaining isn't painted as a bad thing.
You like me because I'm a scoundrel. There aren't enough scoundrels in your life.
So the invention of the term mansplaining is an amazing example of how language and the act of naming can radically shift the public perception of and conversation around a subject.
Until we had this word, we all had this experience that we had no way to explain.
If you're new here, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified about all of our new videos.
That's when a man explains something to a woman in a patronizing way.
Actually, it's when a man explains something to a woman in a condescending way.
According to Merriam-Webster, mansplaining is when a man talks condescendingly to someone, especially a woman, about something he has incomplete knowledge of, with the mistaken assumption that he knows more about it than the person he's talking to does.
The problem is how women are portrayed in the media. From a young age, women are taught that their value is how they look.
Rebecca Solnit's April 2008 essay, Men Explain Things to Me, is credited with conceptualizing the idea of mansplaining.
I am falsely credited with coining the term mansplaining. Apparently this essay inspired it. I did not actually coin it.
But the word's first documented usage came in May 2008, in a comment left on a LiveJournal blog. In 2018, author and digital designer Kim Goodwin tweeted a chart she'd made for two male colleagues who asked her how they could tell if they were mansplaining.
During ovulation, a woman's only goal is to get pregnant. And during menses, she is sad that she has failed.
Basically, the key questions to ask are, number 1, did she ask for your input?
The sexism I'm talking about is all the little disrespectful things that men do that
they don't even realize.
And number 2, are you qualified to explain this thing to her? Double check if it's safe to assume you have more relevant expertise in this topic, and that you're explaining something that's more obscure than the average person, read man, in this context would probably know. If she asked for your input, or if you are an expert, you're probably not mansplaining.
How do I find out what kind of chromium they use in Hinckley?
Have you been to their water board?
What's that?
But still, check your tone. Condescension also counts as mansplaining.
We let the little ladies keep tabs on their growing babies with fruit. Makes it simple for them.
Meanwhile, if you answered no to any of Goodwin's questions, you're definitely mansplaining.
Did you know there are more people with genius IQs living in China than there are people of any kind living in the United States?
Time to stop talking.
First, you go into iNews and you look over the questions the segment producer put in the rundown. Identify yourself and your news agency, summarize the segment.
I've done this before.
Okay.
Since its popularization, the term has cropped up a lot in TV and pop culture.
Don't need no mansplaining.
There's a meta and much repeated joke where men explain mansplaining to women.
Mansplaining is
It's when a man explains something to a woman that she already knows, but he acts like he's teaching her. Does that make sense?
See, mansplaining is when a man explains things to a woman like she's stupid.
Boop.
Mansplaining is when a man will condescendingly explain something to a woman that she already knows.
It's when a man tries to explain something to a woman that she already knows.
Are you mansplaining to me right now?
But long before there were jokes about mansplaining, there were fictional portrayals of the phenomenon, many of which reinforce that men should adopt positions of expertise in order to appear smart and attractive to the opposite sex. Here are some of the types of mansplainers we can see in movies and pop culture that have fueled the problem. 1. The romantic hero mansplainer, who can arguably be traced back to the Pygmalion fantasy.
You're always talking, Eliza, teaching Eliza, dressing Eliza.
It's popularized in cinema through the retelling My Fair Lady, where Professor Henry Higgins educates ignorant flower girl Eliza Doolittle.
The rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain.
Didn't I say that?
No, Eliza, you didn't say that.
Remaking her through intensive dictation and etiquette lessons into the perfect lady of his imagination. The oft-remade A Star is Born, first released in 1937 and 1954, likewise portrays an older, richer, and more powerful man making an ingenue over both inside and out. A Star is Born presents this as a generous act of love.
My mind works, it's all jumbled.
I can sort it out.
Can you? I can't.
My Fair Lady is actually quite critical of Henry Higgins' hubris, as he gives himself credit for Eliza's transformation, which is really evidence of her exceptional power and merit.
Tonight, old man, you did it. Now wait. Give credit where it's due. A lot of the glory goes to you.
But despite this self-awareness, the film still shows he's helped shape Eliza into a hugely impressive, poised woman who dazzles society, and who comes back to him in the end.
What the devil have I done with my slippers?
The feeling that mansplaining is romantic can be found in numerous films, with rom-coms often including it as cute banter.
Men and women can't be friends because the sex part always gets in the way.
I have a number of men friends and there is no sex involved.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't.
Compounding this issue is the fact that there are so many on-screen romances between older male characters and younger female ones, who tend to be portrayed as having less knowledge or experience of the world. This speech that Richard Gere's Edward gives to Julia Roberts' Vivian in Pretty Woman is often viewed as a tender expression of how he's opening her up to a better life.
People's reactions to opera the first time they see it is very dramatic. They either love it or they hate it.
But more recently, Dickinson spoofs this speech by having a woman recite these sentiments to her male love interest.
People's reaction to opera the first time they see it is very dramatic. They either love it or hate it.
And he finds it decidedly pretentious and annoying.
Cool.
Even in a more recent romance like 2016's La La Land, a man pushing his explanations on a woman is played off as signaling his comic quirkiness and intense passion.
I hate jazz.
I just think that people, when they say that they, hate jazz, they don't have context.
And while she's playing with him a bit here,
The only way they could communicate was with jazz.
Yeah, what about Kenny G?
What?
his insistent explaining ultimately wins her over. Meanwhile, in depictions of professional settings, we can find the benevolent professional mansplainer, who presents his beauteous knowledge as a gift to less informed employees lower on the totem pole, often women.
It's Immanuel Kant. Duty, sublime and mighty name that embraces nothing charming or insinuating but requires submission.
The counterpart who gives this guy reason to exist is the implausibly ignorant female professional.
I've come to the realization that if I'm going to be talking about it all week, it's probably best that I understand what I'm saying.
It's common for stories to make a character not know something they definitely would, just so the writers can get exposition across to the audience.
This is how it works. The writers are supposed to get here at 10. Then we go into our offices and read the newspaper headlines for joke ideas. We submit our jokes to Brad, who makes his selects. That's what makes it in the show. And that is how we make a TV show.
But in hindsight, Aaron Sorkin's The West Wing has been criticized for doing this with Allison Janney's razor-sharp character CJ, who, despite being the White House press secretary and later the chief of staff, is portrayed as needing her male coworkers to fill her in on subjects someone in her job would definitely be informed on.
There's certain parts of it that I don't quite understand.
I can help you out. Which parts?
Well, all of it.
All of it?
Yes.
You don't understand the census.
The show also gave birth to the term teledonna, referring to how often Josh explains things to Donna, who becomes his long-term love interest.
Let's say your cut of the surplus is $700. I want to take your money, combine it with everybody else's money, and use it to pay down the debt and further endow Social Security.
One of the most weirdly prevalent versions of the mansplainer is the expert on women mansplainer, who tells a woman what she wants and feels.
You need kissing badly. That's what's wrong with you. You should be kissed and often, and by someone who knows how.
Fiction is full of examples of a man explaining to a woman about herself, often framing this as cute flirtation, whether he's illuminating her hotness,
Apparently, you are attractive.
or how she comes off.
Your hair is pulled back, you're wearing reading glasses with no book, drinking a Grey Goose martini, which means you had a hell of a week and a beer just wouldn't do it.
He even educates her on things she would obviously know better about, like, labor pains.
Something called Braxton Hicks contraction. Oh.
God, that's no big deal. Most women don't even feel them.
Okay, no uterus, no opinion.
How women feel about their underwear,
Bras are for men. Women want to see themselves the way men see them.
and of course, feminism.
Not allowed so much as a vote, but an army nonetheless, ready to rise up in the best of causes.
Mansplaining can also take the form of speaking for or over the woman.
And it is a breeding ground for atypical behavior, and certain people have certain processes.
That doesn't mean it's acceptable. And
No,
the point is that things are changing and people need to respect it.
We also get the selfless helper mansplainer. Even 2020's The Queen's Gambit, which laughs at the mansplainer's impulse,
Men are gonna come along and want to teach you things.
features men somewhat hilariously showing up to teach the main character about chess after she's beaten them, with the ultimate takeaway that they're being generous.
I know, you're better than me. But if you're gonna play the Soviets, you need help.
This figure's problematic history as a glorified male hero can be seen most clearly in the aspirational intellectual mansplainer, who tends to draw typically much younger, beautiful women to be his sounding board.
Her smile is in the lower spatial frequencies. The horizon is significantly lower on the left than it is on the right.
For years, Woody Allen won an intense following by presenting himself as the charming, aspirational mansplainer in many of his films. In this famous scene from Annie Hall, he complains about a cartoonish mansplainer that Vice's Judy Berman notes, with his glasses and distinctively Allen-style haircut, is surely a doppelganger and a clue that Alvy is more of a pretentious windbag than he realizes.
Aren't you ashamed to pontificate like that?
But if we revisit Allen's work in light of his adopted daughter Dylan Farrow's account of sexual abuse, this pattern of casting himself as the benevolent teacher or molder of much younger women is uncomfortable to watch.
I mean, what's 6 months if we still love each other?
Hey, don't be so mature, okay? I mean, 6 months is a long time.
In 2009, An Education also insightfully exposed how this kind of older, aggressive mansplainer may be a dark figure, seeking to take advantage of a young girl.
Isn't it wonderful to find a young person who wants to know things? There's so much I want you to see.
Increasingly, pop culture portrayals of the mansplainer are at last becoming more self-aware.
I never understood why women wear so much makeup. It's like, you guys are so much more beautiful without it. It's just this soul-sucking system meant to oppress women.
And we're seeing the threatened mansplainer.
What is this obsessive need you have to make everybody agree with you?
More modern, knowing pop culture examples draw attention to how mansplaining is more often the response of a male who feels threatened by a woman who's intelligent, educated, or thinks differently.
You a big Paul McCartney fan?
Big enough to know when that album came out, which was 1976.
No, sweet pea. You're wrong.
As Anchorman satirized well in 2004.
They named it San Diego, which of course in German means a whale's vagina.
Doesn't it mean Saint Diego?
No.
Yes, saving face. The most important pillar in the WASP handbook to life.
Okay, there's no pillars in a handbook, so get your metaphors straight.
Mansplaining is a symptom and mirror of an imbalanced power structure. In this case, patriarchy.
The kind of rape you're talking about is difficult and usually impossible to prove.
It's not a kind of rape.
But it can also happen with race, which is why white-splaining has recently been named too.
I just want to make sure that we're doing
I
our
will
best
say
foot
that the
forward.
only team that's left with diversity is the team that announced that they like this script the most as it is. And that's Leo and Kristen. Everyone else had major problems with
but
it,
riddle me
and with
that, no?
exactly the things that you're bringing up. And
According to New Scientist magazine, in a patriarchy, men are more likely than women to hold positions of social, economic, and political power. And when you're born into a dominant group, it can give you an inflated sense of importance.
So mansplaining is a way that we men can help women be better.
Why is thinking something women never do? And why is logic never even tried? Straightening up their hair is all they ever do.
On top of that, men have traditionally been afforded longer and more thorough education than women. These two things combine to create men who are sure of themselves in a way that many women struggle to be, even when they're experts in their field. So it's hardly surprising that mansplaining is so common if we look at all these cues that both pop culture and our society at large have long given us about how men should talk to women.
What do you mean you hate jazz?
Just means that when I listen to it, I don't like it.
So So what can you do the next time it happens to you?
Listen, girl.
If a man has spoken over you or is explaining something that you already know, you can, number 1, be polite about it if you don't feel you can get into an altercation. Executive coach Christy Hedges notes that, in a work context, saying "thanks, but I've got this" is a clear signal that it's not wanted that doesn't compromise your professionalism.
I've got it handled, thank you.
If you normally like the person, you can, number 2, go with comedy or sarcasm to keep the mood light.
Tess, you're doing a great job curating the museum. The Vermeer is quite good. It's simple, vibrant, although his work definitely fell off as he got older.
Remind you of anyone?
Humor is a powerful way to change the subject without offense.
Without evolution, how do you explain opposable thumbs?
Maybe the overlords needed them to steer their spacecrafts.
If you're certain that the mansplainer doesn't know what he's talking about, why not, number 3, test him.
Smokey's dead.
Smokey the bear?
Smokey Robinson. Pam, he died like an hour ago. I guess I'm the first to know.
And let him sow the seeds of his own humiliation.
Tracks of my tears and what else? What are some more? What's one more?
Okay, I'm not playing this game, Pam.
You can also lightly troll the mansplainer.
You can literally see them evolving through time.
Really? So now, the real question is, who put those fossils there and why?
But if he's not stopping or you've just had enough, you can straight up, number 4, call it out.
Do not mansplain to me, and especially do not white mansplain to me.
This can make you feel better.
You mansplaining microaggressive bobo cabron!
But don't expect that confronting a mansplainer will necessarily improve his behavior. A bruised ego may even make him worse.
You're saying that I'm mansplaining.
Well, it is a term that's used.
Is it by whom?
Well,
by
it
rude.
is a term that's used.
By rude. Doesn't make. By rude senators.
In Fortune, journalist Jennifer Mitzgata responded to a question about how to handle mansplaining at work by stressing that the long game is to change the culture rather than one specific man.
I can help you navigate the toxicity of this male culture which is encroaching on our feminist island. I mean, for instance, there is something called mansplaining. Have you heard about this?
We know what mansplaining is.
While calling out a single mansplainer might not achieve much, Mitzgata advised the inquiring women to take up more space through behaviors like speaking up, documenting her accomplishments, giving herself credit, and reinforcing her value.
Why aren't we reading Sandra Cinero's?
I thought it was a great book.
Hey, I was talking.
She also advocates for involving men in the process of combating mansplainer culture, as progressive male allies are a key part of restructuring conversation norms. And of course, if you see mansplaining feeding into something that could go dangerously wrong with serious consequences,
and we need to shake them before we can find a new base.
shut it straight down.
So stick to your post and follow my orders.
So I have a question for you, okay? What would you say is the worst example of a mansplainer in a movie or TV show?
Well, you know, watching these clips as we were putting together this video was really illuminating because there were so many that maybe the first time I saw it growing up, I did not view them in this light. The West Wing clips, Josh explaining to Donna, and this is romantic, or the examples we found where they make CJ not know things you need to know for her job.
And so often it's justified by exposition, right? Like that's how the audience learns a little more about the backstory or information or details. But why does it have to be explained
to a woman? Yeah. One of my favorite clips that we use is Catherine the Great's response to being shushed.
Shh. Listen, girl.
That was pretty cathartic. It is interesting to look back at a lot of these ones in a different light that definitely played differently when we were growing up, and I think it just shows what we're saying in this video, that, you know, changing the words you use, changing the conversation makes you look at it all differently.
We are more self-aware, and there are so many more films or movies or dialogue that has that self-awareness.
Yeah, the more recent clips we found for this, you know, we're more aware of mansplaining, calling it out. Going back even to La La Land, they're kind of being playful about it. They're sort of showing that he's being mansplaining, but you know, she's trolling him a little bit, but it's still cute. It's still romantic banter. It's still them kind of falling for each other. And I don't think you're quite seeing that as much anymore. When we dig into topics like this, it really makes me aware of just how much pop culture does shape the way we think about these things.
It doesn't mean we can't still have fun watching a movie and there still can't be great scenes. It doesn't mean that we can't be aware of how we're watching it and receiving that information too.